I'm going to pass it on over to Roland. I might take my video off for a little bit and come back on when we have our guest. But yeah, I'll pass it over to my two favorite co-hosts.
All right, thanks, Alexa. So, quick kind of to do for everybody that's watching this right now. Make sure that you share this link, housecallpro.com/coronavirus, to everybody. This is not just for Housecall Pro users. This is for all pros. This is why we're investing so much time, energy, and resources. We believe all pros should have access to this as a resource. So, housecallpro.com/coronavirus. Also, the Facebook group too. It's really easy to grab the URL from the top of your web browser and post it into other groups. This way, other home service professionals can hear about it and also make use of all the information that we're going to be sharing. So make sure you do that. Obviously, today we're going to be covering lots of different things. But first off, obviously, we wanted to reach out and make sure that all of our pros and everybody's doing okay in Salt Lake City with the earthquake and Utah, kind of all around Utah. I guess it was quite a large earthquake and got a lot of people kind of in a sticky situation. So we kind of wanted to start off by acknowledging that and making sure that everybody's all right over there. And it's definitely, if you're a pro in that area and you use Housecall Pro, you need any extra help, feel free to reach out to myself, Mel, Ian, Alexa, any one of us with anything we can do to help you guys. So definitely in our thoughts and hope everything is okay there. So Mel, obviously we see you now 2 nights in a row. Maybe a quick intro,
Sure.
who you are, what you do for Housecall Pro, and then we'll dive in from there.
Yeah, so I've met some of you the last couple nights, but for those who are just joining, I'm Melina Fairleigh. You'll notice everyone calls me Mel, so feel free to do that. And I'm here to give you a brief world update on coronavirus every night, and we'll continue to do that, as Alexa said, as long as it's helpful. But as point of background, I'm not a scientist or an infectious disease expert or an attorney. I'm a human resources professional. I've been in the field for over 20 years, and the majority of my experience has been in real customer-facing businesses. I spent most of my time at Trader Joe's, a retail grocery store, leading recruitment and development there. So I'm familiar with folks who interact with the public all day, and I know that those jobs are pretty tough right now in all industries. So this hopefully is an update that is relevant to anyone who runs a business, and especially anyone who interacts with a customer-facing business. So I know many of you have lots of questions, and we'll get to some of those, as Roland mentioned. Post them in the Q&A so we can see them coming through, and we'll do our best to make some time for those.
Definitely. So first things first, what we do on every single one of these is we go through the daily updates, Mel's State of the World. So why don't you kick us off on kind of what's been going on today and any new trends and updates there?
Yeah, so start with some numbers. As of yesterday, the World Health Organization reported over 179,000 confirmed cases, and I think with their new reporting coming out, we'll see that number will top 200,000, if you can imagine. And they did report over 7,400 deaths across 160 countries. Italy's death toll increased by 475 people today alone, and that's the largest daily increase that's been recorded in any country. So we're really getting some unfortunate news as we still try to get our arms around this across the world. In the U.S., Johns Hopkins is reporting a total of just over 6,500 cases and 115 deaths here in the U.S. as of 11 a.m. this morning. I heard we've got a few Canadians on the call. Today, we all heard that the U.S. and Canada have mutually agreed to close our borders to all non-essential travel. And what we're really starting to hear, the real theme, is that experts around the globe are really beginning to warn us that life is going to be disrupted for several months. This is no longer thought of as just a few-week event. I know here in California, our governor even, spoke to all of us parents, and I've got 4 kids, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, and I had to sit with each of them today and say, you're likely not going back to school this school year. That's not been announced and confirmed, but our governor real clearly said, gosh, it's looking like it's more than just a few weeks here, and our kids would be unlikely to return to the school year. Yesterday, we talked about unemployment, and there was a new poll about U.S. job loss. It was conducted by NPR, PBS NewsHour, and the Marist poll, and 18% of respondents said that they had been laid off or had their hours reduced. And unfortunately, this poll was several days ago. So this was conducted March 13th and 14th. So it doesn't account for any of our recent increases in the closing of non-essential businesses and restaurants and takeout only, or bars and nightclubs closed down. So that number will continue to climb. As a trend, we're continuing to see travel restrictions. So the border closure, shelter-in-place orders that we've seen, and lots of these essential business only orders. So we talked about some of this last night, people trying to figure out who's an essential business, who's not. So I think what we're seeing just as a theme is that when that does happen, it's often taking those counties or states a few hours or up to a day to get a complete list out to let you know if you fall on that essential businesses list. But we talked about yesterday that we saw that lots of the home services are included as essential businesses. So you'll want to really tune into your local, county, and state government websites to stay up to date on what's going on near you.
Yeah, we've also seen several pros start to formulate letters to send to their local governments, their county level governments, their governors of their states, as well as the White House, to make sure and petition that a lot of home service companies are set as essential businesses that need to operate, because we all live, it's still winter for definitely in the top half of the United States. There's great consideration into becoming essential businesses that need to operate. So I will post some of that as well here if you guys want to partake and send that into your local government, because we truly believe that.
Great, great. And today there was some good news. There was some new legislation passed. We talked about this a little bit before. It had been proposed, passed in the House. We were waiting for the Senate, who today did approve a relief bill. So notably, as part of this package, they call it the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. It's going to include free coronavirus testing. We've all been hearing about testing, expanded funding for some of our food security programs, increased funding for Medicaid, and increased funding for state unemployment insurance. So we all know that the number of unemployed or underemployed, partially employed, full-time employees who went to part-time, those numbers are growing daily in every state. So they're allocating additional funds for unemployment insurance. And then also created some new paid sick and family and medical leave for workers at companies with 500 or fewer employees. So that certainly impacts all of us on the call here today. So that might be a topic for the future as we get to read more about that new legislation. But the summary is up to 12 weeks of protected family and medical leave, including 2 weeks at full pay, with additional weeks taken with no less than 2/3 of the employee's usual pay. And small and mid-sized businesses would receive tax credits to pay for the medical and family leave of up to 100% of the wages that small and medium-sized businesses would pay out for that. So I've got a lot more reading to do on that new legislation, and I'll get us updated as best I can in the coming days.
And
so
those numbers and stats we'll post too. So all these things we'll put together in the PDF slide for those of you that want the PDF afterwards, because we're throwing a lot of numbers out there and these kind of things are always getting updated. We want to make sure we put the most up-to-date stuff in that PDF for you guys to consume also after this. If you guys have any questions.
Yeah, and I think we can safely say that Congress is expected to continue considering legislation to respond to this crisis in the coming weeks. This continues to be the #1 topic in governments across the world, and governments across the world are making steps to help us all get through this. So what should we all be doing right now? I mean, still social distancing remains the very best option for all of us. I joked last night that I'd never heard the term before all of this, but now it's a common household term, social distancing. So 6 feet between us. Even if your area hasn't required, any more stringent quarantine, lots of us are self-quarantining in our home. So I'm here from home. Roland and Alexa are as well. We're not in our office, even though that's not necessarily been mandated everywhere. So, and you as leaders, what you can do in your businesses, in your homes, in your families, is continue to lead with transparency and good communication with all of your employees. So getting reliable information, so information from government sources, information from the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, from OSHA, From these updates, I'm going to provide you with information from reliable sources and not forwarding unverified reports or rumors. If you hear something, go straight to your county or state government websites for timely information and updates to make sure that you've got the full story, the full information before passing things along. So I think for today, those are the best recommendations that we can all follow.
Yeah, typically best practices for this kind of stuff is if you get forwarded something that looks like a copy and paste, make sure you do your due diligence. Often go take a look at sources that are actually links that you can go to that are verified domains that have been there for a while, because these are people that know that their website is going to be out there forever on Google's Wayback Machine. And so these are going to be verified sources, and at the very least, should give you a quick little barometer of whether or not something's factual or not. So remember, if it looks like it's copied and pasted, if there isn't a link or source somewhere, go see if you can find the source. And like Mel just said, go look at your local, state, and federal resources. We'll have links to all of those as well.
Yeah.
So today's topic, we're going to be talking about SBA loans, but in particular, economic injury disaster loans. So there's a fancy acronym for them. I don't even know how to say it, but EIDLs, EIDLs.
EIDL.
But, EIDLs that they're there. And as the government keeps rolling out more and more economic loss declarations and things like that, it'll be more accessible to more pros. So what is this, Mel, and where do pros go to even start to look for whether or not their state is a disaster area or declared disaster for this to apply?
Yeah, great question, and you've led into the first thing. So these economic injury disaster loans are loans that are working capital loans, so cash loans to help small businesses meet all of their ordinary and necessary financial obligations. So it has to be obligations that can't be met as a direct result of the disaster. And the loans are intended to assist through the disaster recovery period. So first, your county needs to be approved by the Small Business Association, the SBA, for one of these economic loss declarations. And those are submitted by the governor. So I looked it up earlier today. I'll make sure and give you guys the links to all the websites, but you can look up your state and then see if your county is listed. So once it's been declared by the governor, economic assistance will be available to businesses within that county, as well as contiguous counties around the county. So any of the counties that touch your county on a map. So first, there needs to be that disaster declared for these to come into effect.
And there's a website for this for them to be able to see that's updated in pretty much real time if they are affected or not.
Yeah, so sba.gov/disaster. sba.gov/disaster.
And we'll be posting that link right here in chat, and then also be available in the resources after this.
Yeah, and I did find some periods of slowness on the website with some pages taking some time to load, which really is I think the world that we're living in these days, is these are high need sources of information. So I've read through the website today, so I'm ready and able to give you the general information that you need to understand what those loans look like.
Yep. And so there's a 3-step process. Kind of walk us through what that looks like.
Yeah, the 3 steps. So first, you assume that your county is covered as a disaster area. You can submit, the first step is to submit an application. So it's online, in person at a disaster center, or by mail. Obviously, online is going to be your fastest bet for any type of program application. So you can submit that application online. And then what happens is the Small Business Association gets a verifier that's going to estimate your losses, what losses your business is experiencing during this time, and a loan officer will determine your eligibility for the loan. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But that loan officer will work with you to reach a determination, and their goal is a 2 to 3 week to a decision point. And then the third step is they send over loan closing documents, and once signed, you get an initial disbursement of $25,000 for economic injury within 5 days. So you can get money flowing, if it takes you a few days to do an application, 2 to 3 weeks to a decision, and then sign loan documents. And within 5 days, you could be looking at something as quick as 30 days to a $25,000 infusion of capital into the business.
So the sooner you start, the better. So don't wait on this. Don't wait till you're, a week from not being able to make a payroll, for example. Start now.
And the loan may be adjusted based on changing circumstances. So let's say your insurance kicked in and covered something you didn't think they would, and then you don't need as large of a loan. So that, amount would reduce in coordination with the SBA. Or if things lasted longer than predicted or hit harder than expected, then there's a potential too for that loan amount to increase.
Yep. And in general, these loans are actually really good loans. They can be up to 30 years to pay back. They're capped at 4% interest rates and things like that. So I'd say, when you go out into a world of where do I get money from? This is actually a very credible loan with very reasonable rates that with long times to pay back.
Yeah, exactly. And similar to other loans, there are some credit requirements. So you've got to have some credit history, and have some repayment ability, show the ability to repay the loan. And then they do look for collateral. They don't need collateral for loans under $25,000. They do take real estate as collateral when it's available. You won't get declined a loan for a lack of collateral, but if you have collateral, they will require you to pledge collateral that you do have available.
Yep. And what's the max limit that you know about right now?
$2 million for economic injury caused by the disaster.
Yeah, so there's a huge range that you guys can go up to 25K, kind of unsecured, 25K to 2 million, with some securities kind of backing that, or some assets backing that for them. But there is, a big opportunity here to be able to at least get you through many months, depending on your planning, depending on your burn, or how much cash your company has to outlay every single month in terms of overhead if you need it.
Yeah. So to summarize with the loans, sba.gov/disaster, see if you're eligible in an eligible disaster area, apply online, and then online you can continue to check your application status.
Perfect. All right. So let's see if there's any quick questions here that you can answer before I introduce our next guest. Alexa's going to come back online here.
I'm back. I never left. We have a lot of questions. There's one on here that didn't make it to our Q&A box, but it is good. Does this work any differently if it's a one man or woman business? If it's just me, can I apply for a loan?
I didn't read about any restrictions as to how large the small business is. So it's a Small Business Administration. I recommend just going and checking out and beginning to fill out the forms.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Some are related to this topic. Some are just within our scope altogether. Does home and office cleaning qualify as an essential business?
I think this is in reference to the mandatory closures that we're seeing in some counties and states. And so you'd have to check your whoever issued the closure ordinance is typically then also giving us a list of what those are. And so some will say things like home repair and construction. Some will specifically say plumbing and electricians. Some will say services that help people, work from home, or that help essential businesses stay in business. So you're going to have to do a little digging in your local area. It doesn't seem to be at this point something that is equal in all areas that have asked for non-essential businesses to close.
Mm-hmm. And then two more on here. So this is from Sarah Williams. So we've definitely noticed a decline in appointments for new sales and have had at least 4 people cancel their appointments this week. We're okay for now, but at what point should we consider an SBA loan?
So remember, the SBA loan is designed to help you bridge the gap with actual losses that you've received. So they are going to look at what sort of loss you've had. So you do need to have some loss on the books for you to be able to go and apply for a loan to cover those losses. Does that make sense? So knowing you're going to have losses, you're going to have losses to show, because they are going to assign you an evaluator who's going to help put a number on what those losses are. So if you're not yet experiencing losses, I'm certainly That's a new topic for me. I'm not an expert. I haven't been through the loan process, but you would, from their eligibility criteria, you need to have actually experienced the loss.
Yep. And then also remember that the business end of that question too is when should you start considering it? Is consider it now as soon as you're starting to see any losses, because that's probably going to be projection for how the next couple months are going to look like. So don't be afraid of starting too early. It's better to start the process early and get kind of clear definition around what kind of losses even current ones look like, but then also projected future. And then even if, let's say, business has an uptick, to be able to get a business line of credit at 4% for up to 30-year payback for up to a certain amount of money, you can put that money to work in so many ways that you can come out of this thing like a slingshot. So I would say from a business perspective, it's never a bad idea to get started too early on that. Make sure you've got all your doors open in terms of options.
And then one last question before we go into our next section is from Melissa Arvizu on Facebook. And this may or may not be something we know. Again, Mel is just reading up on this for you guys, so she doesn't have all the answers here. But is the amount for the loan based on your current billings?
So what they do is they assign an evaluator who's going to be looking at the type of losses, and then the SBA determines an appropriate loan amount based on the financial condition of each borrower. So certainly that would be part of your business's financial condition, which in turn will determine the loan amount and also the payment terms. So is it 30 years? Is it something less? And what is the amount of that loan? So they look at the complete financial condition of each borrower, of each small business.
Yeah, billings relates directly to repayment of the loan. So your ability to pay them back is definitely a big part. And that'll be on a case-by-case basis, like Mel said.
And I want to leave it off in one comment from Nathan Colt before we even started talking about this. I'm 100% looking forward to hearing the processes we need in order to procure an SBA emergency loan. Hope to actually expand my business with this loan. So there is opportunity there. Roland, you want to touch on that really quick before we introduce Irum?
I would just say anytime there's situations like this where there's a lot of unknowns, having extra money at your advantage that you can put into play anytime, whether it's to expand, keep running, pay for essential things is always super important. If you get money, make sure you don't go overspend it and start spending a lot of money on marketing, for example, to try to cover in the gaps. So always go for the safest bet first, but have it there. So when things either get better or you feel like you've got a process that works, you can go spend it and then expand your business.
Awesome. So we'll have Irum, who's been with us this whole time. We'll have her unmute herself and join with her video. There she is. One of my favorite super pros, lady pros, pro leaders. She has it all. I'll let her introduce herself because I'm going to cut my video and leave it to you guys. But the way this is going to work is Irum is going to be first introducing herself, her business, how it may or may not be impacted right now with the coronavirus and everything that's going on around it. She's going to be asking 2 to 3 questions on your behalf for Mel and Roland to answer questions that you might have. And then she's also going to be sharing 1 or 2 things that have been working for her, whether they are business strategies, marketing strategies, or just ways to stay positive, which Irum is like a huge influence in our community when it comes to that. So I'm very excited to hear what you have to share, and I will give you the floor, and I'll be back. I'll be back after.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for the warm intro. Hi, everyone. I'm Irum Jones. I'm here in Dallas, Texas with Electrician on Call. So let me just, electrician. Can you see that? I was trying to,
a little bit. It's
a
super
little bit.
bright, but yeah.
Or over there. But anyways, so we're Electrician on Call. We do a lot more than just electrical. We do HVAC as well as indoor air quality management. We've been around for roughly 20 years. This is really the first time we're experiencing all of this. So our hearts go out to everyone that's in the same boat. My role in the company is the Chief Operating Officer. So everything that's going on right now, it's my job and my duty to the employees and our customers to really make sure that everything just is as streamlined and as lean as possible. So do you want me to ask my question? I have a really, really big question here, and I think it really expands to all of the different trades. We're in 2 trades, but we have multiple things that we do. So my question related to this whole coronavirus, pandemic that's going on and how it's impacting small businesses is that although electrical and HVAC is considered an essential, under the different things that we do, there are also non-essential things, right? So currently, this would have been our season of renovations, right? Or our seasons of doing our maintenance. And for us, we're being very careful because the news and everything tells us that, this virus attacks, or, it's for people that have low immune systems and the elderly. Well, when we do air duct replacements, right, or indoor air quality management, that's for people that really are those people that live in a bubble, right? Like, chemo, people that are going through chemo, people that have compromised immune systems. So where do we have that fine balance of protecting our company versus protecting our customers and saying, well, I don't think this is a essential thing for you to do. So that's just covering the indoor air quality management. But let's talk about electrical for a sec. What about if one of our customers calls in and let's say they're over 70 and they fit the profile, right, of someone that, may be compromised much quicker than the able-bodied, healthy person, and they just want a light fixture to be upgraded. Now, we all know that that's an upgrade. That's, our comfort isn't being compromised. That's just being really picky about stuff. But are we supposed to turn them away? And what if we turn them away because it's the right thing to do based off of everything we're hearing? And now they no longer want to be our customer. How do we get them back? And I think the other thing leading into that is, how do we draw the line between what really is essential and what isn't? Like, for example, renovations, those aren't essential when it's all cosmetic. But it is essential if you need some troubleshooting going on and that plug is the one that feeds your refrigerator, right? So there's a lot of different things that we do in our categories of being HVAC, electrical, and indoor air quality management. How do we draw that line? Do we pull back? I'm not sure what everyone else is doing, but I know across all of the different trades, especially with general contractors, all the way down to appliances, we're kind of like, yeah, we're essential services, but how essential are those services that we can provide at this time? Do you guys have any guidance on what we should do to maybe protect ourselves? Because the last thing we want to happen is someone or a customer saying we're discriminating and not giving them the service they deserve or the service they need because we deem it's not essential. What do you guys think? I'm sorry, that's a loaded question, but where do we start on that?
Well, I feel like I think there are 14 questions. So they're all loaded here, but those are really, really great questions to start out with, because I think, like you mentioned, a lot of our pros are thinking about what is essential and what is not. So I think there's a couple of different lenses in which you can look at this with. But Mel, do you want to start on kind of the moral and ethical side?
Yeah, absolutely. And first, let's just recognize that this is a difficult time, that nobody has all the definitive answers, that each of you as business owners or as employees are having to make the best decisions that you can in real time, and that nobody's going to be perfect here. We're all just going to do our very best. So I think just acknowledging that up front is important. First, just start with the basic proposition that we are asked to provide a safe work environment for our employees. And that would also mean a safe environment for our customers. So, keeping that first and foremost as your guiding principle. So even if it is something essential, if the environment isn't safe, if someone was known to have a vicious dog, you'd say, hey, look, we can't come in there, today. You gotta put the dog away. We're not gonna come in. If someone has an active cold or cough, to say, hey, we can't perform this service. So asking anyone, and this should have nothing to do with age, it's okay to say, hey, have you been exposed to the coronavirus? Is anyone in your household feeling unwell? To be real evidence-based in that approach, as opposed to ruling out a group of people based on a risk profile for it impacting them severely. it could be the really healthy, 22-year-old who's the one who has it. And my 92-year-old grandma who hasn't left the house in 3 months anyway, she might need an essential service. So to give it to, someone who you might deem to be healthy versus someone else without really asking those questions, it's probably not an evidence-based approach and could lead you to make some decisions that maybe you don't feel great about. So, it would be fair to look at the services you provide and see how many of them can be performed with social distancing. What can you set up ahead of time to say, yeah, we are doing that service as long as someone is in good health, has not been exposed, has not traveled to any of these areas that the CDC says have a high likelihood of community, or not a high likelihood, but have increased community transmission. So regardless of your age, ethnicity, gender, neighborhood, we're not going into any of these places right now. And you wouldn't, you would expect that your employees would really want to know that and hear that. But then after that, see what you can do to make things non-interactive in a physical sense. So can you call from the driveway and say, we're here, can you please go ahead and get back from the door, or remove yourself back to a room off the side. We can talk by phone while I'm in your house. Hey, I'm in the kitchen. Okay, I'm standing here in front of the sink. Is it this that you're talking about? Oh yeah, I see it. Okay. Yeah, I can take care of that. It's going to take me about an hour. I'll call you when I'm done. Use a non-physical mode of payment. You can leave the house having never interacted with anyone, never been in the same airspace. So think about the services that you provide and figure out how many of them are you're able to do without any interaction, and that should make your customers feel good. But also, think about what it's going to say about your company and your reputation that you're taking those extra precautions, and that you're showing up for the elderly, when they need an essential service. So I think being a good neighbor in your community will include really getting clear about, what sorts of jobs you are going to avoid across the board as unnecessary at this time, as opposed, and then also what health conditions within a home or commercial property are not going to fit into the risk factor that you're willing to, put your employees into.
Yeah, and just make sure also you're thinking about the services that you're offering. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about, IAQ, so indoor air quality, what's actually going to benefit someone versus not. Not making promises that your services cannot back up. Do not make any claims that it, zaps any viruses and use those as selling techniques directly when you don't even know if they're true or not. Maybe they could be, maybe they're not. I always think a lot about the way that Mark Cuban acts on the Shark Tank when people come in there with all kinds of pills and funny things. And he's just, saying like, hey, are these backed up by science? And if they are not, and you can't say that, you need to be very careful on what you're doing, because ultimately you don't want to become known as that one contractor in town that during the coronavirus, was selling all these UV light systems and installing them everywhere and charging people up the yin-yang for them. So obviously, think about your own morals, your own ethics when you're determining what things are essential and what are not, and what's backed up by science and what is not, and was just a clever marketing technique. So when you balance those things out, try to do the best that you can real time in the decision that you have to make, and make sure that your employees are safe as well as your customers. And you're going to come to the right decision 99% of the time anyways.
Great.
I feel like that answers a lot of the questions there. But I don't know if it was every single one of them.
I tried as fast as I could to write down Irum's questions. I think the one that we want to address that will definitely, and maybe we were able to kind of address it, maybe I was multitasking, but a really good question I thought she asked at the end was, what if a customer calls in and they fit the profile of someone who could be compromised? Kind of going to the whole discrimination thing, but more so if we have to turn them away and we maybe damage the relationship a little bit, how do we soften that blow? But also if they do end up not wanting to be our customer anymore, how do we get them back and gain their trust back? That's super important.
Yeah, I think like with employees, that transparent and honest communication, a why goes a long way. So be comfortable with what your why is. Your why should be, we're not performing that service right now, not for anyone, or we are performing that service right now, and I have a few questions just to make sure that, you know, this is an environment that's going to be safe for both of us. Are you willing to be in another room or area during the service? Great. Has anyone in your family been exposed? Has anyone in your family sick? Has anyone in your family traveled to, you know, one of these danger areas on the CDC travel list? Great. And just so you know, if when we come to the home, you know, if we do experience anyone, you know, with signs or symptoms, any flu-like symptoms, we will, you know, be rescheduling for a later day at that time. And please let us know if anything changes, and then arrange for that, you know, that non-contact experience. But I think if you give people the why, and the why has nothing to do with their age, the why has nothing to do with their particular, you know, repair need. It's the repair in general that you've decided is not currently what you're going to call essential. It's not about them. It's about something that you've decided as a business to apply consistently and evenly across your community.
Yeah, and make sure that pops up in any reviews of your business afterwards, or by a disgruntled company, that you address it in the exact same way. Hey, it wasn't just about you. Obviously, our country went through a time where XYZ. It's something that we do offer normally, but under these circumstances, we don't. We'd love to service you again sometime in the future. Right, so that way when people look at these negative reviews, I hear pros tell me all the time, Roland, I don't want to get a customer to leave me a bad review. What do I do if they do it? They feel kind of beholden to these reviews. This is your time to shine. Make sure you craft the right reply to those reviews if they do happen to come in. All right, so Alexa's on mute.
Yeah,
I'm back. So we have a bunch of questions, some on this topic, others just like all over the place. It's up to you guys if you want to answer a few here, or if we want to respond to these everyone individually with answers.
Well, we want to keep these a little tight. I know that we're 40 minutes over here, but I want to ask Irum like one kind of important question. Is there anything that you can tell all our pros that are watching right now that you think will positively benefit their business during these times?
Right. So I think we still need to be super active on social media and have, like you mentioned before, evidence-based or educational-based material, instead of getting a little too gimmicky on, you know, some of the visuals that are out there. So definitely take on what's being passed through, especially if you're an IAQ. I have not personally increased any of our marketing budgets, because people are so overwhelmed by what's going on that they're not paying attention to some of the normal marketing budget that I spend on. So I actually pulled back.
Yep.
So that's my 2 cents.
That's good advice. I would just say, obviously, like, you know, as money is very volatile right now, just know that your ad spend could increase massively, but also decrease at the same time too, based upon what you might even normally be used to. So just be really cognizant of those facts. Be really active and involved in your business on a day-to-day basis, so that you can make any adjustments or things that you need. And then ultimately too, just make sure you're doing the right thing. You guys all know what the right thing is to do and what not the right thing to do is, and you all have businesses as owners that you want to keep running and keep that cash flow. So ultimately, you need to make sure you're playing the long-term game and not the short-term game. And if you're optimizing for the long term, you'll weather the storm. And if you treat the customers right, offer to bring them things on the way to the home if you're doing that. Or even if a customer happens to call in, you say, hey, you know what, I can't do that service for you, but I'm going to be in the neighborhood. Is there anything I can drop off for you? Those are all great moments in time to improve your brand as a company, both with your employees as well as potential customers and customers down the road.
Mm-hmm. And kind of to add on to what Irum's answer, like, she's still being really active on social media. In our Coronavirus for Home Services Facebook group, if you are creating any ads or putting anything out to your customers and you want honest, unbiased feedback on it with really just your customer and your business's best interest in mind, post it in there. Myself, Roland, Mel, the whole Housecall team is in there, as well as all of your fellow pros. And we'd be more than happy to give you some feedback, constructive feedback on any ads you might be running during this time. If you want an extra well, we have over 1,000 pairs of eyes in there. So we got your back there, because that's a really good point, Irum, not to just forget about social media at this time. In fact, people are probably more on their phones. I know I've been. It's probably bad, but I've gotten a lot of stuff since then. Yeah, so I know we are really over time, but there was so much good stuff today, and I do feel bad we weren't able to get to a lot of your questions. So what I'll do, and hopefully with the help of Roland and Mel, is I'm going to copy and paste all these and actually put them into a Facebook post. So we will all work together to get you the answers, and if we don't know them, we'll post the link to the resource that will get you the answers. So keep an eye out in the Facebook group. If you are not a part of it yet, all the questions that rolled through during this time on Zoom and on Facebook, we will post on there and we will get you answers, I promise.
All right, thanks guys. And remember to tell your friends about this. Feel free to share the Facebook group to anybody. This is not just for Housecall Pro, this is for all home service companies. Also, thank you so much, Irum, for coming on here, asking us some really good questions, like always, as we knew you would, and sharing some great tips. And thank you, Mel and Alexa. And we'll catch you guys tomorrow at 5 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time, 8 o'clock Eastern. Thanks so much, guys.
See you there and in the Facebook group. Bye, everyone.
Great night.
Bye.